Well, a sub-question. Do you think that in the collective mind of, say, British society, any parallels with World War II are drawn? What I mean is, does British society feel that in Putin's Russia's face, in the Kremlin's face, Ukraine is fighting the enemy of the whole progressive world, and by supporting Ukraine, Britain does the same? Is that the case?
Yeah, I think there's a very large concern about Vladimir Putin's behavior. I think he's shown himself to be hostile to the West, to be hostile to Ukraine, to be hostile to the United States, to be hostile to British interests. And I think there's a tremendous amount of sympathy in the British people when they see the war crimes and the atrocities that the Russian military has committed. And they start to draw parallels and they say, look, we have sympathy for the Ukrainian people. We know how dangerous Putin is. It's time to go and stop him in Ukraine. They draw parallels to their resistance to the Nazis during the Second World War.
Great Britain announced a ban on Russian diamonds, all right, and imports of metals from Russia, including, you name it, copper, aluminum, and nickel, in support of Ukraine. The UK has also announced a new wave of sanctions against Russia, targeting businesses and individuals connected to Russia's capacity to fund and wage the war. The 86 designations target individuals and organizations connected to Russia's energy, metals, defense, transport, and financial sectors, ramping up pressure on Putin's remaining revenue and his attempts to use these sectors to support the Kremlin's military machine. My question is, why so late? What, in your expert opinion, could have held up such an obviously necessary decision for so long?
Well, I think mainly the Russian trade with Europe was selling oil and natural gas to the EU. If you look at that, Europe was sending almost €1 billion a day at points to the Kremlin for oil and gas. That's ended now. That's the major supply of Putin's foreign currency from Europe. What the UK had minor trade with Russia to begin with. The diamond trade was not that big and important. And while I think it should have been done sooner, if you look at what they were concentrating on, they were concentrating on the big fish, the big trade. And they're now doing a little mop-up operation of smaller things to announce a year and a bit into the war.
Do you believe sanctions are working, actually?
I believe sanctions are causing Vladimir Putin to have to make decisions, to have to make trade-offs. How much money does he want to spend propping up his rule in Russia? How much money can he spend on the war, right? Every dollar that we keep Russia from getting, every dollar we keep the Kremlin from getting is a dollar that Putin can't use. I don't have exact figures on how much damage sanctions have done to the Russian economy. Vladimir Putin is not a man to be trusted. And frankly, we don't have any good economic data coming out of Russia. But what I can say anecdotally is the Russian economy is having great difficulty being able to cope with both providing a good standard of living for the Russian people and providing tanks and guns to the Russian army. So Putin's stuck in a trade-off. He can't have it all, and these sanctions mean that he has to make some sacrifices in his ability to wage war.
If that would be for you to decide, what sanctions would you propose?
I would propose a comprehensive set of sanctions on Russia. I obviously am in favor of very large energy sanctions. I'm in favor of banning financial transactions. I'm in favor of seizing the assets of some oligarchs. Most of those things are now in place. And so we're now starting to see actual pressure come on the Russian economy.